everyone, and thank you for having me as one of the speakers. This is the FHS team. I hope everyone had a good lunch. My name is Gaurav Sinha. I'm the CEO of Insignia Worldwide, which is a category-defining destination design, development, and experience company. We are a strategy and design advisory firm, having worked for the last 21 odd years in the region and internationally, working in luxury hotels, but now also in urban planning and design development of real estate. I've always had an allergy with the word luxury and hospitality, and subsequently I've grown an allergy with the term culturally connected and authentic. And I'm going to try and provoke the conversation in such a manner to hopefully share some ideas and thoughts with you, which will stimulate how you look at placemaking, experience augmentation, or partnerships, and when you're building a brand or cultivating experiences. So I'll start first with a little film. So the team had a little bit of fun with a little bit of AI. So the McDonald's thing that you saw with the core, that was more purely an indulgence. You know, when you look at it, today we have this little tension between what I call the hyper-homogenization of brands, you know, all brands trying to have a degree of consistency. And at the same time, you know, you have this conversation around authentic experiences. People want to connect with the local community, the culture, etc. And how do you balance that tension if you're a global brand and you're trying to also be locally relevant? And we've seen this, you know, when you look outside the fence or look over the fence, let's not look at hotels alone, but when you look at lifestyle brands, you start seeing that there are great opportunities that exist if you understand the local community and how you can create meaningful engagement opportunities for your brand. In Dubai, if people who have lived in the city, you're familiar with a very famous staple restaurant here called Ravi's, which is where the cab drivers would go to have a bite to eat, or if you had a big night out, you would end up, you know, having a bite to eat subsequently at one of these street restaurants. This was picked up very cleverly by Adidas, who did a wonderful collaboration in Dubai to create that level of connection, to say that we actually understand your neighborhood. In a similar way, you know, you have other brands like Nike and Apple who have also figured out how to create those meaningful interventions and connections which talk not about the brand, but about the person, the consumer, what they aspire to and what they connect with. And these are usually values, aspirations, dreams, affinities that people want to connect with. So if you ask yourself for hotel brands, you know, how does hospitality embrace a similar spirit of partnerships or cultivating brands or partnerships and looking at interventions that can create meaningful connections? How do we do that? So at Insignia, we believe we call it the future fit flow, you know, which is a nice alliteration on the fact that you're talking about three very critical components. One is to uncover your truth. Don't try and build a brand by, you know, trying to deviate and do mercenary partnerships purely for the sake of it. You know, whatever partnerships you look at when you're looking at building those meaningful connections, make it commercially equitable. You know, at the end of the day, it can't be gimmicks for the sake of gimmicks, and, you know, you have these very unique opportunities where you have to create a degree of hype for your brand, etc., and you want to be imaginative and creative, but at the end of the day, these things have to also make commercial sense. And then also building connections through consistency is not trying to just do one thing, but actually focusing on building that out in a meaningful way. And doing that for the long term. So when it comes to understanding brand affinity opportunities, when you're building partnerships, why would you build partnerships? Do you borrow, the equity of another brand? Do you connect to a human truth? How do you cultivate that, and how do you make those connections in a meaningful way? Now, at the heart of it all is good human connections, understanding a human need. And if I was to give you an example, if you look at Soho House as a brand, it has been very clever in Soho House's deeply embedded DNA is about that sort of quintessential nostalgia of the West and of England in many ways, and the Britishness they have. But they fuse it really well. They go to Miami, they'll do something wonderful in Miami, which is locally embedded. If Soho House comes to Mumbai, they still bring that same sort of je ne sais quoi, the sort of emotion of what it is to be part of a members club, but they will connect to local craftsmanship wherever they go. In Soho House in Mumbai, if you've been there, you will walk past the sort of the lounge, the members' lounge, and you will notice that the lamps are all made out of old saris, which is an Indian garment, and those have been woven together and tell a beautiful story of local craftsmanship and solving and making that connection between the members living in India to connect to their local neighborhood and the sort of the DNA of the cultural DNA of a place. Similarly, if you look at Airbnb realized in the UK that a large number of their assets were being booked for experiences or by people who were coming to attend an occasion. So they did a great partnership with by rotation. They understood that a lot of people were coming to attend weddings, and for those people attending weddings and coming and staying at an Airbnb, they collaborated with a brand or a service provider which rents, couture clothes. So you don't have to actually carry all your big, beautiful dresses. You can actually rent one for the time that you're there. Again, a very nice human truth about understanding what do you do in a space or environment where you don't necessarily have, housekeeping, laundry, and all the other bits that you would typically get in a hotel. So very important, again, to make sure that some of these things make commercial sense. And I think purpose is really important. When you're building partnerships, there has to be a degree of precision in your thinking. You can't be mercenary by trying to do something one season, another thing another season. I think staying true to your purpose, being precise, and making sure that you do it in a passionate and consistent manner will obviously lead to unique opportunities which are going to augment your brand equity. How do you make it commercially equitable? As an example, you look at Six Senses, they pledge 0.5% of their revenue towards something called the Six Senses Fund. The Six Senses Fund also deploys 100% of their revenue from soft toys, 50% of their revenue from the water that they sell, all goes towards charitable causes to create sustainable narratives and support those initiatives. Soneva has something very similar. They have a phenomenal experience that they created using recycled wine bottles, and all glass bottles from different islands would arrive at Soneva Fushi. They would melt and use the recycled bottles to create glass sculptures, and those glass sculptures, whatever they would do with artists that they would bring in from overseas, these artists in residence would then create these beautiful glass sculptures, and they would sell these, and whatever money was generated was then repurposed into providing lessons to Maldivian children to learn how to swim, and other initiatives of similar vein. So it's fascinating to see how brands, when you're aligned to your purpose, you can do things that can become quite meaningful. They can be commercially viable. They don't necessarily have to impact your bottom line, and can actually generate positive impact. Similarly, building connections through consistencies. This is about making sure that you don't lose your own brand identity while you're trying to pursue meaningful connections within your audience or with your target customers. Now, it's very important for hoteliers, in my opinion, today to also understand that they can't necessarily always hold on to the SOPs of what creates a space and how you operate it. In many ways, hoteliers have to become a lot braver to understand that they're not the story, but they are also the stage. And by being the stage, what that means is making the stage available to your loyal customers, your local community to come and interact and use that space where they create a sense of belonging, that this space belongs to me as much as it belongs to the hotel. Give you an example of something like that. You would have somebody like Liberty, the store in the UK, has a wonderful program called the Tastemakers program. They bring their top 1,000-odd customers and engage with them consistently every season to curate the Liberty collection and get the customers to have a thumbprint on the brand story. Similarly, the Tate Museum had a wonderful initiative called Tate Lates. This is about creating a space and an environment, giving the youth of the local neighborhood the opportunity to take over the space in the evenings and come up with a whole host of innovative engagement ideas and initiatives, whether it's a music concert, an art exposition, or a community workshop that allows the space to become something that is owned or creates a sense of collective ownership with the local community. Components to think about in the context of what I say. To wrap up, uncover your human truth. If you're building meaningful connections, try and do it in such a manner that it resonates with people. Make it commercially viable, make it commercially equitable. Not everything has to be an expense. It can be not necessarily something that you can actually induce opportunities to generate revenue, and it can be commercially viable and self-sufficient. Lastly, making sure that you don't do this purely for the sake of creating partnerships which are seasonal but actually aligned to your purpose. They have a degree of precision and persistence, allowing you to build long-term brand equity. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.